Don't just stand there, rancher. Something bit me. Take out the poison before it spreads. The morning began like any other on the ranch. The sun rose slowly over wide open land, spreading soft light across dry grass, wooden fences, and distant hills. The air was calm, with only the sound of birds and the steady movement of cattle. The rancher had been awake since before dawn. This was his normal life. He believed in starting early, finishing work with patience, and respecting the land that fed him. He moved steadily from one task to another, checking water troughs, fixing a loose fence post, and watching the animals as they grazed. Nothing felt unusual. Days like this often blended together, quiet and predictable. That was how he liked it. Out here, far from busy roads and towns, peace came from routine. By late morning, the sun was stronger. Heat began to rise from the ground, and the rancher wiped sweat from his forehead. He was about to head toward the barn when a sound cut through the silence. At first it was faint, almost lost in the wind. He stopped walking and listened carefully. The sound came again, this time clearer. It was a voice, a woman's voice. The rancher turned toward the open field near the edge of the property. He narrowed his eyes, trying to see what was happening. Then he spotted movement. A woman was coming toward him, stumbling as she walked. Her steps were uneven and her arms shook slightly. Something was clearly wrong. He started walking quickly in her direction. As he got closer, he could see her face clearly. It was pale and fear was written all over it. Her breathing was fast and she looked like she was struggling to stay on her feet. "Don't just stand there," she said, her voice shaking. "Something bit me. Take out the poison before it spreads." Her words hit him hard. He froze for a moment, not because he didn't care, but because the situation was sudden and serious. People did not usually wander into this land, especially not alone. And when they did not arrive like this. "Slow down," he said calmly, raising his hands to show he wasn't a threat. "Sit down, tell me what happened." She shook her head, panic rising. "There's no time, it burns. I can feel it moving." The rancher guided her gently toward a flat rock nearby. She sat down heavily, holding her lower leg. He crouched in front of her, keeping his movements slow and steady. Inside, his mind was racing. He had lived in this area his whole life. He knew the dangers: snakes, insects, sharp rocks, heat, exhaustion. But he also knew that panic could make any situation worse. "Where were you when it happened?" he asked. "Near the old trail," she said, pointing weakly toward the far side of the land. "I didn't see anything. I just felt a sharp pain." He nodded and carefully looked at her leg. There was a small mark, slightly red, surrounded by swelling. He didn't touch it yet. He had heard many stories over the years, some true, some exaggerated. He knew that acting without thinking could cause more harm than good. "I'm not a doctor," he said honestly, "but I'm going to help you. We'll do this the right way." Her eyes filled with fear. "What if it's too late?" He met her gaze firmly. "It's not too late, you're talking. You're breathing, that matters." The rancher stood up and looked around. There was no phone signal out here. The nearest help was far away and time mattered. Still, he knew that rushing into the wrong action could be dangerous. He remembered advice passed down through generations: stay calm, keep the person still, don't guess. "Can you stand?" he asked. She nodded slowly. With his support, she got back on her feet. He guided her toward the ranch house, which stood a short distance away. Every step seemed to take effort from her, but she trusted him enough to keep moving. As they walked, he spoke calmly, partly to reassure her and partly to keep her focused. He asked her name, where she came from, and why she was out there alone. She answered in short sentences, stopping often to catch her breath. By the time they reached the house, the heat was stronger and both were tired. He helped her sit on a chair inside, away from the sun. He brought water and told her to drink slowly. "You did the right thing by coming here," he said. She managed a weak smile, but fear still lingered in her eyes. "I didn't know where else to go." He took a deep breath and looked at the mark again. It hadn't changed much, but he knew that didn't mean everything was fine. The rancher felt the weight of responsibility settle on him. Out here, there was no one else. What he did next mattered. He stepped outside briefly, scanning the land as if answers might appear in the distance. The ranch had always been a place of independence, but moments like this reminded him how fragile life could be. One wrong step, one hidden danger, and everything could change. When he came back inside, his voice was steady. "We're going to get help. But until then, you need to stay calm and still. Panic makes things worse." She nodded, holding onto his words as if they were a lifeline. The rancher moved with purpose now. He prepared what he could, relying on experience and caution rather than fear. Inside his mind, memories surfaced. Stories of people who survived because someone stayed calm, and stories of those who didn't because of rushed decisions. This was no longer just another day on the ranch. It was a test of judgment, patience, and humanity. And as he looked at the woman sitting in his chair, trusting him with her life, he knew this moment would stay with him forever, no matter how it ended. The rancher stayed close, watching the woman carefully. He noticed how she tried to stay strong, even though fear was clear in her eyes. Her hands trembled as she rested them on her knees. Every few moments, she looked down at her leg, as if expecting something terrible to happen right before her eyes. He sat across from her, keeping his voice calm and steady. Inside, his thoughts were heavy. He had faced storms, injured animals, and long, lonely nights, but this felt different. This was a human life, and it depended on his next decisions. "Tell me exactly what you felt," he said gently. "No rushing, just describe it." She closed her eyes for a moment, trying to remember clearly. "It was sharp," she said, "like a quick sting. Then it started burning. I thought maybe it was nothing, but the pain didn't stop." He nodded. Pain alone didn't always mean danger, but combined with fear and isolation, it could grow quickly. He knew one thing for sure: panic could spread faster than any injury. He checked the time on the old clock hanging on the wall. It ticked loudly in the quiet room. Every second felt important. Still, he forced himself not to rush. "Are you feeling dizzy?" he asked. "A little," she admitted, "mostly scared." "That's normal," he said. "Fear can make the body feel strange. We'll keep an eye on everything." He brought her another glass of water and asked her to take slow sips. He reminded her to breathe steadily. The rancher had learned over the years that calm words could be as powerful as any tool. Outside, the wind picked up slightly, rattling the window. The land seemed to watch silently, as if aware that something serious was happening within the house. The rancher glanced out, measuring distance and time in his mind. Help was far away. There was no easy way to reach anyone quickly. He thought about old advice he had heard many times. Some people believed in quick fixes and risky actions. Others trusted patience and clear thinking. He had seen the results of both approaches. He chose caution. "I'm going to check the mark again," he said. "I won't touch it unless necessary." She nodded, gripping the edge of the chair. He looked closely. The skin around the mark was still red, but it had not spread much. That was a small comfort, but not a promise. He knew that some problems showed themselves slowly. "Do you feel pain anywhere else?" he asked. "No," she said quietly, "just there." He leaned back, thinking. The rancher felt torn between action and restraint. Doing nothing felt wrong, but doing the wrong thing felt worse. "I need to get you to medical help," he said finally. "But moving you too fast could make things harder. We'll do it carefully." Her eyes widened. "How far is it?" "Far," he admitted, "but not impossible." She swallowed and nodded. Trust had settled between them, fragile but strong enough to hold for now. He stepped outside again, this time with purpose. He checked his vehicle, making sure it would start. The engine turned over smoothly, and he felt a small sense of relief. He also gathered basic supplies: water, clean cloth, and a phone that sometimes caught signal on higher ground. As he worked, doubt whispered in his mind. What if he missed something? What if he waited too long? Responsibility pressed heavily on his chest. Still, he reminded himself that fear was not a guide. knowledge and calm were. Back inside, he explained everything slowly. "We're going to drive toward the main road. There's a place where the signal usually works. From there, I can call for help." She listened carefully, holding onto every word. "What if it gets worse on the way?" "If it does," he said honestly, "I'll stop. We'll handle it together." That honesty seemed to calm her more than false comfort ever could. They moved slowly as she stood. He supported her weight, making sure she didn't rush. Every step was careful. The rancher watched her closely, ready to stop at the first sign of trouble. As they reached the vehicle, the heat outside pressed down on them. He helped her into the seat and made sure she was comfortable. Before starting the engine, he paused and looked at her. "You're not alone," he said. "Remember that." She took a deep breath and nodded. The drive was quiet at first. The land stretched endlessly on both sides of the road. Dust rose behind them as the vehicle moved forward. The rancher kept his eyes on the road and his ears tuned to every sound she made. After a while, she spoke softly. "I didn't think anyone would find me." "You did the right thing," he replied. "You kept moving, that matters." As they drove, the rancher's thoughts drifted. He realized how quickly life could place someone in another's care. Out here, titles and backgrounds meant nothing. Only actions mattered. The woman shifted slightly, wincing. He slowed the vehicle. "Tell me what you're feeling," he said. "It's still burning," she said, "but it's not worse." That small detail felt like a quiet victory. They reached a rise in the land and the rancher stopped the vehicle. He pulled out his phone and checked for signal. One bar appeared, weak but hopeful. He tried calling, holding his breath. The call didn't go through. He exhaled slowly and tried again. As the phone rang, he looked at the woman. She watched him with tired eyes, trusting him completely now. In that moment, the rancher felt the full weight of the situation, not as fear but as purpose. No matter what happened next, he knew one thing for sure: standing still was never an option. The rancher did not leave right away. He watched the road until the last trace of dust settled back onto the earth. Only then did he turn and head back toward his truck. The quiet returned slowly, like the land was breathing again after holding its breath for too long. He sat behind the wheel for a moment, hands resting loosely, eyes forward, letting everything sink in. The drive back felt different. The same road, the same fields, but his thoughts were heavy. He replayed every moment in his mind. The way her voice sounded when she first called out, the fear in her eyes, the weight of responsibility he felt when he realized there was no one else around. He wondered if he could have done anything better or faster. That question stayed with him, even though he knew he had done what he could. When he reached the ranch, the animals moved calmly, unaware of what had happened. He finished the most basic tasks, moving on instinct more than focus. As evening came, he washed his hands slowly at the sink, staring at the water as it ran over his skin. It reminded him how small actions could matter a lot. That night, sleep did not come easily. Every sound outside made him alert. He kept thinking about the woman, wondering how she was doing, whether she was safe, whether help had reached her in time. The next morning, just after sunrise, his phone rang. The sound was sharp in the quiet kitchen. He answered immediately. A calm voice spoke on the other end. It was one of the medical workers from the day before. They told him the woman was stable. She had been treated quickly once she arrived. The problem had been identified and it was handled properly. "She's going to be fine," the voice said. The rancher closed his eyes and let out a slow breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. Relief washed over him, warm and steady. They explained that the bite had caused a strong reaction, but it was not as dangerous as first feared. Acting quickly and keeping her calm had helped more than anything else. The rancher thanked them and ended the call. He stood there for a long moment, phone still in his hand. The kitchen felt brighter somehow, even though nothing had changed. Outside, the day had already begun its usual rhythm. Later that afternoon, he received another call. This time, it was the woman herself. Her voice sounded stronger, clearer. "I wanted to talk to you," she said. "I don't think I said enough yesterday." "You don't owe me anything," he replied honestly. "I know," she said, "but I want you to know that what you did mattered. They told me staying calm helped a lot. I didn't feel alone even when I was scared." He listened quietly, letting her words settle. "They explained everything," she continued. "I thought the worst, but panic made it feel bigger than it was. If you had acted without thinking, it could have gone very differently." He nodded, even though she couldn't see him. "Fear has a loud voice," he said. "Calm has a quieter one," she laughed softly. "That sounds like something you've learned the hard way." "Most things are," he replied. They talked for a few more minutes, about the land, about how easy it was to underestimate distance and danger. Before hanging up, she thanked him one last time. After the call ended, the rancher sat on the porch, looking out at the fields. He realized how close the day before had come to becoming a tragedy, not because of danger alone, but because of fear and misunderstanding. Over the next few days, the story spread quietly among nearby towns, not in a dramatic way, but through simple conversations. People spoke about the rancher who helped a stranger, who stayed calm when it mattered. Some praised him. Others said he was just doing what anyone should do. He didn't correct them. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had been tested and had managed not to fail. The experience stayed with him. When he worked, he paid more attention to small signs. When he spoke to people, he listened more carefully. He understood now that knowledge and patience were not just skills, but responsibilities. One evening, as the sun lowered and the land glowed gold, he stood near the same spot where he had first heard her voice. The wind moved gently through the grass. Everything looked peaceful. He thought about how quickly peace could break, and how easily it could be restored with the right actions. He also thought about how many people believed in quick answers and dramatic solutions, when often the safest path was the quiet one. The rancher understood something new now. Living far from help did not mean living without care. It meant being ready, being thoughtful, and knowing when to act and when to wait. Life on the ranch returned to its routine, but the routine felt deeper. Every chore carried more meaning. Every quiet moment felt earned. He never saw the woman again, but he didn't need to. Their lives had crossed at the exact moment they were meant to. That was enough. The land remained wide and silent, holding stories that only revealed themselves when tested. And the rancher moved forward, changed not by fear, but by understanding. He knew now that courage did not always look like bold action. Sometimes, it looked like staying calm, thinking clearly, and choosing care over panic when everything was on the line. Time moved on, but the memory of that day never truly left the rancher. Weeks passed, then months, and the land shifted through its seasons. The grass dried and turned pale, then later grew fresh again after rain. Life returned to its steady rhythm, but something inside him had quietly changed. He noticed it in small ways. He listened more carefully to sounds around him. He paid closer attention to weather signs, animal behavior, and even his own instincts. Before, these things had been habits learned over time. Now, they felt like responsibilities. He understood more clearly how quickly an ordinary day could turn into a moment that mattered. People from nearby areas sometimes stopped by the ranch. Some needed directions, some water, some just conversation. Word had spread about what happened, though it was never told exactly the same way twice. Each version made it sound bigger than it was. The rancher never corrected anyone. He didn't feel the need to shape the story. When asked about it, he simply said, anyone would have done the same. But deep down, he knew that wasn't always true. Not everyone stayed calm when fear knocked loud and hard. Not everyone chose patience over panic. One quiet afternoon, as he repaired a fence under a wide blue sky, his thoughts returned to the woman. He wondered how she was doing now, if she had gone back to hiking, or if the experience had changed her path as much as it had changed his. He hoped she was living well, walking with more awareness but without fear. He realized something important then. The event was not just about danger or rescue. It was about trust between strangers. About how one person in the right moment could make the difference between calm and chaos. As the sun lowered, casting long shadows across the land, he finished his work and leaned against the fence. The quiet felt deeper now, not empty but full. Full of lessons, full of understanding. That night he sat on the porch with a warm drink, watching the stars appear one by one. The sky out here was always clear, wide, and honest. It reminded him how small people were and how important their choices could be. He thought about fear, how it often rushed people into poor decisions, how it whispered lies, making situations feel worse than they were. He had seen that fear in the woman's eyes, and he had felt it in his own chest. But he had learned that fear did not have to lead. It could be acknowledged, then set aside. The rancher also thought about kindness, not the loud kind that demanded attention, but the quiet kind that showed up when needed and left no trace behind. That kind of kindness didn't ask for thanks or recognition. It simply existed. Days turned into months and seasons continued their slow cycle. Sometimes when he worked near the old trail, he paused and looked around. He remembered the moment when a voice broke the silence, changing everything. Those memories did not bring fear anymore. They brought clarity. He knew now that being prepared did not mean expecting danger every day. It meant respecting the possibility of it. It meant understanding limits, knowing when to seek help and knowing when to stay still. One morning, a younger ranch hand asked him why he always kept extra water and supplies ready, even for short tasks. The rancher smiled and said, "Because you never know when someone might need it, maybe even you." The lesson passed quietly, just like the land passed wisdom from one season to the next. The rancher never sought attention, and he never needed closure. The story did not end with celebration or applause. It ended with understanding. With a deeper respect for life, for calm thinking, and for the silent strength found in ordinary people. He continued his work, living simply, listening closely, and acting carefully. The land remained vast and unpredictable, but it no longer felt unforgiving. It felt honest. And whenever the wind moved through the grass, carrying distant sounds across the open fields, the rancher remembered one truth clearly. Sometimes the most powerful thing a person can do is stay calm, think clearly, and choose care over fear, especially when everything depends on it.